on the City of Lights. French President Francois Hollande reading the names of the dead at a national ceremony of remembrance and promising families of the victims that he will do everything to destroy what he calls the army of fanatics. This after the French leader met last night in Moscow with Russian President Vladimir Putin, securing an agreement to share intel in the fight against ISIS. Also, possibly stepping up their involvement, Great Britain, as Prime Minister David Cameron makes an urgent appeal to lawmakers in the UK to support airstrikes against ISIS in Syria. In the meantime, syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer saying that ISIS has created a terror trading state bigger than anything the world has ever seen on a President Obama's watch. Listen.
Right now, governors in 18 states, you may know, are saying that they will not take those people in, and the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee is now lashing back in a statement saying, quote, "The American people are rightly concerned about admitting Syrian refugees and the impact it could have on the safety of their families and neighbors. It's hypocritical for the Obama administration officials to threaten enforcement action against these states when they refuse to enforce the vast majority of our immigration laws," end quote. And then there's this development. In his Thanksgiving address, the president compared the Syrian refugees to the pilgrims who came to America centuries ago. Watch.
I've been touched by the generosity of the Americans who've written me letters and emails in recent weeks, offering to open their homes to refugees fleeing the brutality of ISIL. Nearly 4 centuries after the Mayflower set sail, the world is still full of pilgrims. Men and women who want nothing more than the chance for a safer, better future for themselves and their families. What makes America American is that we offer that chance.
Okay, you know, Doc,
Turkey's foreign minister trying to calm tensions with Moscow after Turkish forces shot down a Russian warplane on Tuesday near the Syrian border. There's been a growing war of words since the incident in which one of the Russian pilots was killed. But the Turkish official says they believe the problem can be overcome with diplomacy. The surviving Russian co-pilot says Turkey never warned them that the plane was violating their airspace. But Turkey says they did alert them 10 times.
Well, Russia is now ratcheting up its response to that incident. They've deployed these anti-aircraft missile systems to Syria. Joining us now to talk about it, retired Navy Captain Chuck Nash, who is a Fox military analyst. These are S-400 surface-to-air missiles. They're sort of the equivalent, Captain, of our Patriot missile system. Does that, therefore, exponentially escalate an already volatile situation?
Well, it adds to the complication of the whole thing, Greg, because these things reach out several hundred kilometers. It's actually a 3-missile system to cover various range and envelopes. And the problem is the rebels are not flying aircraft. The only people flying aircraft are the Russians, the Syrians, the United States, and the 7 or 8 other countries that have put aircraft in the coalition. So who are you going to target those missiles against? It's going to be against coalition aircraft, and all you need is a mistake and action.
If not, will Putin simply do what he wants to do? And his attitude may be, well, if you want to cooperate with me, it's going to be on my terms.
Yeah, and I think that's what he's doing, Greg. I think he's trying to separate the United States from the rest of Europe, i.e. NATO, and focus on the EU as, hey, look, we're all on the European continent together. The Americans are an ocean away. I'm the big guy on the block now. I'm the only one willing to act. The United States is not willing to act. So if you want to solve European problems, let's do it together. Yeah. And he and President Obama, by doing that, will wind up dissolving NATO.
In the meantime, ISIS rages on with terrorist attacks, expanding their territory.
A showdown is brewing between governors and the feds over Syrian refugees in this country. Senior political correspondent Mike Emanuel shows us it has to do with who actually has the authority to make the decisions.
In his Thanksgiving address, President Obama compared the Syrian refugees with pilgrims on the Mayflower and tried to reassure the American people.
Now, people should remember that no refugee can enter our borders until they undergo the highest security checks of anyone traveling to the United States. That was the case before Paris, and it's the case now.
with 31 governors saying the refugees should not be brought to the U.S. and 18 governors saying Syrian refugees will not be allowed to settle in their states. The administration warned they do not have the legal authority in this letter sent yesterday, writing, quote, any state with such a policy would not be in compliance with the state plan requirements, applicable statutes, and their own assurances, and could be subject to enforcement action, including suspension and termination. House Judiciary Chairman Republican Bob Goodlatte fired back, saying, quote, it's hypocritical for Obama administration officials to threaten enforcement action against these states when they refuse to enforce the vast majority of our immigration laws. Before leaving for the Thanksgiving holiday, House lawmakers overwhelmingly passed a measure requiring a higher level of verification for a refugee from Iraq or Syria to be allowed into the country.
If our law enforcement and intelligence community cannot verify that each and every person coming here is not a security threat, then they shouldn't be allowed in.
In the Senate, Democrats have promised to block the bill.
The United States has a long, proud history of providing refuge to the world's most vulnerable, and it would be shameful for us now to turn our backs.
Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has put the measure on the Senate calendar and called for taking a step back after the Paris attack.
At the very least, it strikes me that we need a pause or a moratorium because the American people are quite concerned and upset about the possibility of terrorists coming into our country through some kind of refugee program.
McConnell says the ultimate solution is making Syria a place its people can return to, but he says the administration has never had a coherent strategy to settle the conflict there. Doug?
Thank you, Mike.
Doug, Russia says it's open to working with the U.S. in the fight against the Islamic State. This as France continues to push hard for a single coalition. French President Francois Hollande brought his global tour to build a coalition to fight the Islamic State to Moscow Thursday, where he received warm support from Russian President Vladimir Putin.
We see that you are putting much effort into creating a wide coalition. You know our position. We are ready for such common work and consider it absolutely necessary. And our positions coincide on this.
We have to take the initiative so that we can intensify the fight against those terrorists. That's why I'm in Moscow, to establish with you how we all need to react and to coordinate so we can beat this terrorist group and at the same time find a political solution for Syria.
France and Russia are united by atrocities carried out by ISIS, the Paris attacks, and the downing of a Russian passenger jet over Egypt in October, which killed all 224 people on board. Russia has intensified airstrikes and cruise missile attacks in Syria in the past week, while the French have moved an aircraft carrier to the region to triple their striking power. Now, British Prime Minister David Cameron is urging Parliament to join the fight.
We should be part of that action, not standing aside from it. And from this moral point comes a fundamental question. If we won't act now, when our friend and ally France has been struck in this way, then our allies in the world can be forgiven for asking, if not now, when?
In France and Belgium, the manhunt continues for the 8th attacker, Salah Abdeslam, and a possible accomplice, Mohamed Abrini, who were spotted together at a gas station 2 days before the Paris attacks. Despite the absence of any breakthrough arrests, the terror threat level in Belgium has been lowered from 4, the highest, to 3. The capital, Brussels, has been virtually locked down for the past 5 days. France will face a new security challenge as 140 world leaders begin to arrive Sunday for a UN climate conference. Now we've just gotten word that German police have made 2 arrests in a mosque in Berlin. The 2 men stand accused of planning to carry out a bombing attack. Doug?
Steve Harrigan with a brightly lit and sparkling Eiffel Tower behind him. Thank you, Steve.